episode 34 of One Man's Opinion. Today I am reviewing the world premiere production of Annie Baker's Infinite Life at the Atlantic Theatre Company, directed by James Mangold, running off-Broadway through October 15th at the Linda Gross Theater at 336 West 20th Street in New York City. I'd like to take a moment to thank my patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to support my show, please consider visiting my Patreon page and becoming a patron. Your help is very much appreciated. I was supposed to review Infinite Life back in August, but due to COVID rearing its ugly head, the performance I was supposed to attend was canceled, and October 7th was the date I was rescheduled for. Regardless, though the show is only running for another week, I highly encourage anyone who can make it to New York in the next week to see this immensely intimate portrayal of women of a certain age and how they cope with the tortures of their aging, ailing bodies at a health clinic in Northern California. And if you miss it in New York City and happen to be in London between November 22nd and January 13th of next year, the production is being moved there to the National Theatre's Dorfman Theatre in London's South Bank. Infinite Life is led by Christina Kirk, who plays Sofi, a 47-year-old woman who is considered rather young for most people at this unnamed clinic. I won't detail exactly what she's dealing with physically. It's kind of an important story detail later in the play that I don't want to spoil. I'll just say that her initial description is that it is related to her bladder. On a water-only fast prescribed by the doctors at the clinic, she spends her days lounging with 4 other women who are all dealing with their own illnesses, whether it be cancer or nerve issues or other diseases that have medical terms that are a bit out of my league. Sofi initially wants nothing to do with the women, preferring to be left alone to a book that she's reading, but eventually starts to warm up to hearing their stories about family, pain, faith in their method of treatment, sex, and any number of other items. Meanwhile, whenever she can get a moment alone, Sofi is on the phone having conversations of alternating degrees of apology and eroticism. The various ailments the women have are less important than the bond the 5 ladies build with each other, as they have nothing else to do but either lay in their room all day or spend time with each other on the patio. The conversations may on the surface seem banal, but if you watch Kirk's performance in particular, she develops quietly as she listens to the older women around her, displaying their emotional, mental, and spiritual strengths, as they don't necessarily encourage each other with words, but by just being there. It's like an unspoken language of understanding that Sofi is starting to learn. It's rather inspiring to watch, and Kirk's performance, which may get overlooked by some, is filled with a subtle, nuanced growth. Then the man walks in the form of Nielsen, played by Pete Simpson, another patient at the clinic, and apparently the only man there. Older than Sofi, but emitting a certain silver fox handsomeness that turns the eyes of all the ladies there, he brings a different dynamic to the scene than the ladies, which has a lot to say about Sofi's inability to be forthcoming about herself so far in the play in regards to how she relates to women versus she relates to men. The supporting cast is great. I especially love Marylouise Burke as maybe the eldest and most frail woman at the clinic, Eileen, who moves and talks with such necessary intent and a tenderness that makes one wonder if there is anything left for her to gain through the treatment she is going through. Brenda Pressley as Elaine, Christine Nielsen as Ginnie, and Mia Kattigbach as Yvette round out the cast, each with their own quirks and charms. For light, sensitive audience members, Infinite Life may be a little jarring, as all the scenes happen outside. They happen over various times of day and night, and Isabella Byrd's lighting design is intended to give a very natural feel. Some of the nighttime scenes are so dark that it takes a minute or two for eyes to adjust enough to get a clear idea of what's happening on stage. Then we jump to a daytime scene, and the lights hit fairly quick and hard, which can be a bit blinding. The good thing is, Sophia cues the audience for every scene change by saying something like 5 hours later. So if it's dark out and she says something like that, it's a safe bet that if you don't want your eyes flashed with light, just avert them for a beat until the light cue has hit, and then return to looking to the stage. Infinite Life carries a lot of intimacy. I don't necessarily mean intimate as in erotic, though there is a fair bit of sexual conversation that is had, but intimate in the sense that these are people who are going through trauma in their lives and are nervous about what's going to happen if their health doesn't improve. And some of the most intimate connections people build are during times of crisis. It helps build trust and camaraderie, but that's only assuming you're willing to open yourself to possibilities. and that's what Infinite Life presents. But I am only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the description below. If you'd like to see Infinite Life, I'll leave a link to both the Atlantic and National Theatres' websites where you can get tickets. Please visit my Patreon page if you'd like to support my channel. Your help is deeply appreciated. You can also support my channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and click the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be the Broadway show Zsa's African Hair Braiding. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you at the theater.